Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Fabul podcast, where we talk about incredible stories from the world of independent cinema. From directors and screenwriters to actors, animators, and makeup artists, we take a deep dive into the industry, looking at how people in the independent space are changing the game and providing us with new and incredible stories. So whether you just finished binging watching your favourite TV show or doing some chores in the garden, I'm glad you joined us here today. My name is John, I'm your hostess with the mostest, and today we are joined by a once comedy game show producer turned into a writer and director who has recently made the art of sweeping under the rug. Zach Danek, welcome!
Hi, thank you for having me.
How's it going? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was nice. I got a dog like a year ago, so this year I opted to stay here in California and do a Friendsgiving and celebrate with the dog a little bit. Her sort of adoption day. So,
any beers involved, or was it just a sort of a casual Friendsgiving?
Yeah, I actually made this sort of like Polish liquor called Krupnik.
What?
It's like honey and cinnamon and orange. It's like, but you kind of drink it like whiskey or like a shot.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, we drank like 2 bottles of it.
So you're feeling a bit sore this morning?
I'm good. I'm good to go.
Right. Well, let's crack on then. So, for everyone listening in, The Art of Sweeping Under the Rug is Zach's. Was it your first short film?
Yeah, I mean, I had made some things like in high school and college, but this is the first one that I would say is canon. You know, the first one that counts. It's the first one that's like on my IMDb and Letterboxd and that kind of thing. It's like officially my work, you know.
Visually, yeah. So what inspired you to make this film? Because I watched it the other day and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It does feel horror-esque, but in this really psychological way. What inspired you to make this series of short little stories that will combine to this one oversensing part of dread?
Kind of a lot of things at once. A little bit of like stories that either I'd sort of experienced or witnessed, or things that I had heard or saw somebody, say, and a little bit like some of the work that I like too. Like the film for me is very much inspired by like Michael Haneke's work, Roy Anderson's work, Andrea Arnold's, but specifically like the format. I actually just started thinking about like, I should try to make a film that's like kind of manageable. Like I've had some ideas where the budget just seems so crazy. I was like, I need to think about something that could be dramatic, but I mostly just have people talking, as opposed to like, some sort of big sci-fi epic or, something like that. And I started coming up with different stories, and I started noticing that there was a bit of like a theme between them. And so then it became this sort of collection of vignettes that it's become.
This like feeling with the film is really quite disturbing, I found. It's about people's ignorance to things. And it starts off quite tame-ish in a way. It's still bad. For everyone listening in, it's sort of this idea of ignoring a problem, ignoring something that's happened, and someone not basically crying out for help or someone asking for help, in a way. And the first one starts off quite tame. It's a relationship which is kind of being ignored and the issues that they have. And then it jumps to the final story, which I won't ruin, but that one's a huge, shocking one. I hope that you haven't actually encountered that. We were just speaking about it.
Yeah.
Is that based on something real?
No, not that specifically. For those of you who are listening that will end up watching the film, just to give like a specific example, at one point I lived in an apartment where I had a neighbor next door. Like there was a couple that would fight, and I at certain points I was like, is it my responsibility to call the police? Like, am I doing the wrong thing if I don't, or should I be minding my own business? Like, what's best here? And then, stuff from like the first one is more like observations of people's relationships that kind of, let's say, bummed me out or something. Like But no, I mean I don't I'll just say without spoiling anything, I don't have anyone in my family that's that crazy or whatever.
Did you kind of go with a vibe of being horror, sort of psychologically related, or did it kind of evolve into that?
I always, a couple times when I said that I thought it was kind of a horror movie, some people kind of looked at me funny. So then I started saying it's sort of like a drama, sexual thriller or something. I don't know.
Mm.
Genre is kind of hard because I feel like people want to argue about it.
I mean, I would argue that it's definitely a horror in my eyes. Like,
uh,
it's
yeah,
creepy, but I can understand why people would say it's that as well.
one of the, like I was saying, Michael Haneke's films, or Michael Haneke, however you choose to pronounce it, I guess. A lot of his films were big in inspiring it. Like if you watch Cachet, it's like a film about this French couple that starts receiving VHS tapes where it's like it's obvious someone is spying on their house. They're just like recording the outside of their house for hours on end. And it's not necessarily like what you think of as the typical horror movie with like a guy with a chainsaw or
Mm.
something. But I think those things are really spooky, like on a more real world level. And so that kind of stuff interests me, or I gravitate towards that kind of stuff where it's like
Feels
this is
real.
this is what disturbs me about like the real world, as opposed to like trying to make up a scariest case scenario or something.
Well, it's what Stephen King said. There's sort of three types of horror he defined. There's sort of the freak out, which is jump scare, the gross out, which is always, of course, blood, guts, and gore, and then there's true horror, which is coming back to your house and finding all your cutlery in the wrong drawer and having no explanation for that. And I think your film fits in that final category perfectly, where it feels quite real, but there is something completely off about it. And again, the dialogue in it is fantastic. I found it felt very real, which gave that sense. It didn't feel as like awkward or very scripted. It felt like I was actually watching someone do something. I almost felt like I was the one spying on the situation more than anything else. So it does fit that angle quite well. What you said, someone watching and recording a VHS outside. How long did it take to shoot, by the way?
Okay, so there's the half-hour short that we shot, and with the intention of filming more to it to complete it as my first feature. The half-hour short was 6 days of shooting. So we shot the three VHS scenes in like a half day right at the beginning, and then we shot the first part, the third part, and the second part each over like a day, a weekend, and a weekend. And then since then, we've done another day of shooting. So we've done 7 days, and we have about 40 minutes now. But that runtime wasn't built into what you saw.
Oh, there's lots of things also added to it,
Yeah.
and many a take normally. With a feature length, how are you planning on working that? Because this is a series of
Yeah.
short stories. Are you planning on making that the feature length with those, or are you doing a longer story of one sort of core idea?
Yeah, so there are currently three vignettes with one character that's sort of in the background of all three, and the feature will be like 5 chapters instead of 3 chapters, and there'll be a section with her, and then there'll be a section that's totally new, and the pieces that we've seen will have small additions to them to sort of complete that story. So when you get to the end of the film, there's something that like everyone who watches it always asks me a question, like what happens like literally 5 minutes after the movie ends, let's say.
Yeah.
And so like that sort of stuff, I feel like if I'm able to finish the feature film, I feel like I need to address that for people so that people are less like frustrated or whatever. Like it feels like the thing I owe them or something. You know what I mean? Like
I
that
think it's quite good to have it linger, though. The questioning of what did
yeah.
actually happen. That's a huge decision on making people want to talk about a film
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, that's I mean my favorite films are the ones where everyone kind of walks out and they get to have a debate about something.
I think this one definitely does do that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
With this first, obviously, short film, budgeting as well, that must have been quite hard. We've got quite a few actors involved and
Yeah.
different houses and locations. How did you manage all of that?
So, as far as locations, what we've been lucky with so far is that for the most part, when we've shot at a house or something, it's a friend of mine, and I'm like, "Are you down to let us like invade your space? We'll like pay for you to have cleaning done after or whatever." Or like in the one case, I bought some furniture as props, and they were like, if you just let me have the desk, like that could be like our form of payment or whatever.
That's a win.
The actors are all paid. As far as the crew, my like the camera guys, the sound guys, the hair and makeup people, and the lighting people are all paid. The people who sort of help me produce it and help with art department stuff and set dressing and that kind of thing are mostly like kind of friends and collaborators, and we're sort of trading days. Like when they go to make their movie, I'll give them back however many days they helped me, kind of a thing. But yeah, like you said, there is sort of a large cast. For a 32-minute short, there are 10 actors with speaking lines. It is a smaller budget. Do you want me to say how
You
much
you
we?
you can say if you'd like
Yeah,
to.
so yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I tell anyone who asks me in real life. So yeah, it's a 32-minute short, and it costs about $20,000. But that includes like the giant hard drive that I bought for editing. That's going to get used, when during the feature as well, and all the post stuff. That's like everything, including festivals and whatever.
With the feature, then, are you using some of the
Yeah.
footage that you've already got and done in this one?
Yeah, my intention basically is to add on, right? So if I have a half hour, I'm going to shoot like another hour and 15 minutes or so, and it'll be, we're using, the same cameras and all that stuff. It was shot on, if you're curious about this, I guess, it was shot on different Aries, like a couple different models, the Alexa, the Amira. Obviously, there's some VHS footage as well. And then for the lenses, we did Zeiss Super Speed, like the compact ones, the CP2s or something like that.
I love the VHS element of it.
Yeah,
It
it
did
is.
give that retro creepy vibe.
It's a real. It's one of those cameras where you put the full VHS tape in it, not like the little tape,
Oh,
and then basically just like convert it to digital. And what's kind of cool is that the camera had like a semi-broken microphone, so we got like kind of shitty audio from the VHS camera, and then like good audio from the boom. So
oh well.
I got to like play a little bit with both. But yeah, so it costs like a couple grand a day to rent out cameras, and in some cases lighting gear or G&E stuff, to pay a handful of people a couple $100 or whatever, to feed everybody. So, I have to figure that it's like something like 4 grand a day for shooting for this size setup that I have. And obviously like everyone is different, but for the feature, I'm trying to come in at like under
Mm.
$100,000, which would be very, very low budget for a movie, but it's a lot of money when you say $100,000.
So yeah, $100,000 for anyone
Yeah,
sounds like a lot.
it's a
With
lot of money. I mean,
it's
it's a
a
car or a house, depending on where you live.
so it's so you're going for the whole feature length, and I'm assuming with that it's then festival time and getting it out there.
Yeah,
Um,
seeking a
when
distribution deal and that kind of thing as well.
exactly
For put
when
it
do
on
you
streaming.
think the feature will be done?
Honestly, that kind of entirely depends on money because uh, there's a draft that's written that I'm sort of floating around to friends and collaborators and stuff right now. But the final shooting script isn't necessarily like 100% locked in. It's like 90% done, and then most of what is stalling me is that I don't have the rest of the money to finish the film. But the way the script is set up and the way the film is set up, it's very much in sections, and I kind of shoot like a section at a time. So it doesn't feel weird to me. If I don't
Mm,
know, and I don't think that I don't think looking at the movie necessarily matters, or that you can tell that like I shot the short over several months or like a year or whatever.
Well, I think
because
it would
it's
be
like,
very obvious if you had kid actors in there. Then that's going to be like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
7 months they've grown up and everything.
Yeah, luckily there are no, even in the feature there's like, I think there's a scene where there's a kid for like a minute, but we're gonna shoot that over one weekend and then that's it. So that's one way that I guess this is a little bit different. Like a lot of movies, they raise their full budget and then they shoot the whole thing over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long they're able to afford to, however many set days they can pay for, and then it's done, right? Or maybe
Mm.
they have reshoots or something. Accidentally, this is a little bit more like, the Boyhood shoe where it was shot over 12 years or something.
Yeah.
But
It's a
I'm
clever
hoping it
way.
doesn't take that long.
No, 12 years would be a long one. It is a clever way of doing it, though, because it means you're not, waiting
Right.
all that time to get 100 grand, which, again, is not an
Right.
easy task, whether that's self-funding or getting producers involved. So splitting it up is a economic way of making it. And especially
Yeah.
since the way you've scripted it and the way it's kind of done in these individual stories that can all relate,
Right.
it's a smart way of doing it. From your experience, obviously, you've come from a background of production and producing stuff.
Yeah.
How is it directing your first sort of short film and now going into your full length feature?
Well, so because I'm also writing it, like one thing I struggle with a little bit is like while I'm writing, thinking as the executive producer also, where I'm like, well, wait, how am I going to afford to shoot this scene? You know what I mean? Like, so you start thinking about stuff differently because you're like, what can I do that tells the story that I can afford to shoot, or like that, like, can I move this to a different location, or can I have like less people around for this scene, or is there like a different way of doing it? Do you know Sean Baker, the
Yes.
director? Yeah. So I'm a big fan of sort of his style of working, and I watched something about how like he shot Red Rocket with like 10 people in Texas, like a about the same size crew or even smaller than what I have. And I heard him talking about how they wanted to film a car crash scene for Red Rocket, but like they didn't have the money to do it. So they were like, well, we need to figure out like a way around this, right? So you're always like, you're riding around obstacles, basically. Like you have to like solve these kind of problems because you can't throw money at it. And so that would be like advice or something, I guess. Like
Oh
get
yeah,
creative in
because they
that
do,
regard.
isn't it? And that's, if I'm remembering it rightly, they
I
kind of
think
do
they
like the
watch
TV.
themselves on the news like
Yeah,
afterwards. Like here's the aftermath of their
of it.
fuck up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's those obstacles and those challenges which are fun. And I think jumping from this is all the dream again. You mentioned it.
Yeah.
You can't do a sci-fi epic for your first film unless you've suddenly got a load of money.
Sure.
It's always about how do I overcome this obstacle but tell the story I want to.
Mhm.
With the art house being under the rug, it's that very personal and people story. It's people basically sat in a room and understanding people's relationships. So at least you don't have to deal with big aliens.
Right.
But how do you film? Again, I don't want to do a spoiler. How do you create that last scene with that horrendous part of it? I think you did a really excellent job of there's a
Yeah.
small videotape, but it's all about the sound, which
Yeah.
lends itself to the horror, I guess.
So I spent a lot of time on sound design and editing and stuff, but then I also pass it along to a pair of friends that do post sound mixing and like re-recording and stuff, like a very professional studio. And it was like we came in on a Saturday with permission from the people who own it, and they did like a professional sound mix on the short, which was really cool. Because they fixed all the stuff that I probably messed up, as far as like how we went about filming it, I mean, that was probably the thing that made me the most nervous, just in terms of like, I want to keep everybody safe and comfortable and whatever, I
With
mean, we filmed it in a garage with like fake smoke and, kind of dim lighting. And it is authentically shot on, a VHS camera. And some of that audio comes from the half broken microphone on that camera, because it's like 30 something years old now.
Did you get any noise complaints from it? That would have been quite funny if you actually got some noise complaints.
We did. We told the neighbors, like, hey, we're filming something, like someone's going to be screaming. Don't worry, don't call the cops. Like, it was like my friend's house.
Oh, shit.
So we were like, he knew the neighbors, and we like informed people so that nobody freaked out. As far as, to go back a subject, as far as locations go, because we don't have permits, like, a la Red Rocket, right? Shooting outside is a lot more difficult than shooting in someone's private home or something like that. And so the one scene where they're outside the concert is like the only shot we had to like steal, as they say. So we just like showed up. It was like a closed down movie theater that was like just empty, and we just like showed up in the parking lot with our lights and generators and stuff, and the security guard was basically like, if you don't make a mess, I don't really care.
Well, that was lucky then, otherwise you might have been in for some shit. I think
when we scouted it, we talked to like a different security guard to like give them a heads up, but it was a closed down movie theater in an empty parking lot at like 9 or 10 on a Saturday.
No one's gonna be
no one
there.
was there.
That's very cool. Finding the resourcefulness of finding a place, that's always a hard one, and actually going out and talking to them. I'd be nervous about doing that. Hi, can I just film in this abandoned place? Well, let's I think here we've got so much there, which is fantastic. Something I always ask, as always, what have you been watching recently?
Oh, okay. So I've been watching some horror movies. Let me pull up my letterbox. I've been watching some stuff for sort of Halloween spooky season.
It's nearly Christmas, though. I think you should be watching Christmas films.
I'm not a huge Christmas movie person. Like, whenever my sister's like, do you want to watch a Christmas movie? I'm always like, I try to think of something. She'll make fun of me because I'll be like, yeah, okay, let's watch like The Apartment or something. Oh, yeah. Well, I did just see Sean Baker's new film, Menorah, in theaters. That's probably the thing I most recently watched, like, in an actual movie theater. That was good. I'm a big fan of his work. I like, the slightly smaller original scripts type movies, like I'm kind of tired of, I had superhero fatigue like long ago. And, and I'm kind of done with most sequels and prequels and remakes.
Wouldn't catch you at Gladiator 2 then?
Well, that would be one I would probably like. I'll probably watch it at home, but I'm not rushing out to see it in a theater. The same, like we were talking about movies last night, and I was saying like I'm most excited for like The Brutalist and Nosferatu.
Yeah, definitely same.
So that's like a little bit more my speed than
big action flicks.
I don't even know what's out right now. I know like Moana 2 is out, and the Wicked is out, right?
Yeah, Wicked's out. That's got a huge sudden following.
Yeah. I'm not a huge musical person in general.
No, neither am I really. I think I'll end up dragged to watch it by my family at some point. But I'm very excited for Nosferatu. I'm definitely going on Christmas Eve to go watch that, which is a great Christmas film.
Perfect, yeah.
Very, very seasonal. But I'd like to say again, thanks so much, Zach, for jumping on. It's been fantastic to hear. And honestly, for everyone listening in, the link will be in the description. Please go watch Zach's film, The Art of Sweeping Under the Rug. It is a short film, but fantastic. It had me thinking about it at the end, which is definitely saying something. And I'm not just blowing your trumpet for that. I thought it was brilliant. But from me, thanks so much, Zach, for joining. And Zach,
thanks for having me.
There you go. We did it. Real.